guys, welcome into day 2 of the MLB 30 teams, 30 previews. Yesterday we previewed the Arizona Diamondbacks. Today, myself, Tim Kelly, along with Justin Godsey, we will be previewing the Houston Astros, who last year in the National League Central finished with a record of 55 and 107, which was an MLB worst. They fired their manager, Brad Mills, and ultimately their new manager this year is Bo Porter, the former MLB player, and last year he spent as the Nationals' third base coach. It's a hiring I like, but I believe he is a first-time manager, so there's not a ton to go off of. Ultimately, for Bo Porter, we'll see what happens. He's not necessarily in a situation where he has high expectations, but he's not in a situation where it looks like he's going to have a great team in the near future either, so we'll see what happens with Bo Porter. In the offseason, the Houston Astros didn't have a ton of money to work with, but they made the best of what they had. They signed Philip Humber from the Chicago White Sox, whose claim to fame was throwing that perfect game last year. They signed Carlos Pena from the Tampa Bay Rays. That's a signing that I liked. I know they talked about bringing back Lance Berkman. I think at this point, while Carlos Pena will never hit you a high average, you're lucky if you get 200 out of Carlos Pena. What you do get from Carlos Pena is a ton of power. He's a big league type power hitter, and he has the ability to hit 30-plus home runs. You add that into this lineup. It's a veteran guy who's been in the mix of things before, so it's an addition that I'm not blown away with, but I like. They acquired Chris Carter from the A's as well. He'll likely serve as the backup over at first base because they moved to the American League in the offseason as well. They're moving to the AL West, where it's not going to get any easier for them. They add new uniforms. So, overall, Justin, a crazy offseason for the Houston Astros. What you think?
I think this offseason for the Houston Astros, it's a whole new look to the team, new uniforms going to the blue and orange, which is kind of crazy because, you know, when you think of the Houston Astros, you think about the old red jerseys, you think about the gray jerseys. Now they're going over to the American League West, and we're getting this whole new look to the team, to a whole new league for, or a whole new league for the team. And with this offseason accusations, I mean, it's not going to blow you away. They went some minor accusations. You know, they got Philip Humber, who threw, that perfect game. Carlos Pena from the Rays. And I think overall, I mean, you're going to get a solid average out of, an up-and-coming player down in their minor leagues, which they got acquired in a trade for Chris Carter from the Oakland Athletics. I think Chris Carter is going to be fitting really well with the team. And you got Carlos Pena, who's going to hit you, probably and hopefully about 20 home runs this upcoming season, because this is what this team needs. It needs the power, and Carlos Pena can supply you with that power.
Yeah, Carlos Pena is not going to be a guy that hits you 40 or 50 home runs like he was once capable of earlier on in his career. That's not what he's going to do, and that's not what they brought him in to do, because if he was capable of still doing that, he wouldn't have gone back to the Rays ever, and he wouldn't be coming to Houston this offseason. So, as we look around the diamond, let's start at DH with Carlos Pena, who they signed to a 1-year, $2.9 million deal, which has incentives that can make it worth about $4.5 million for this season. Last year in Tampa Bay, after spending a season in Chicago, he was able to hit 19 home runs with 61 RBIs, but his downfall was he hit 197. He struck out a pretty decent amount of times. So ultimately with Carlos Pena, it's kind of like a hit-or-miss type thing with this guy, and you hope that he can put together a season this year where he's at least able to hit 230, 240, because the last 2 years, he has not been able to do that.
He's been on a bit of a decline, and, thinking about it, I'm hoping that Carlos Pena can turn it around, because you know what, this team really needs that veteran type of bat in their lineup, and that's what they're going to be getting out of Carlos Pena. He can be used as a motivational type of guy, get this younger team, you better on the hitting mechanics, because he has been with so many teams, mainly with the Tampa Bay Rays. And we're just hoping that we get the best out of Carlos Pena in 2013.
Now, behind the plate, you have Jason Castro listed as your starting catcher, a young starting catcher. Last year in 87 games for them, Castro hit .257 with 6 home runs and 29 RBIs. He had a pretty respectable season with them last year. I don't think it blew anyone away, but Jason Castro is one of the few guys on this team that you might head into the season feeling relatively comfortable with.
I agree with that too. This guy plays great defensive baseball, and that's good at the catcher's position. But he like you said, he doesn't really bring that power to the plate. But he brings a solid average, a 257 average. I'm okay with that as a catcher. I think it's going to be a pretty solid decision here for the Houston Astros to go with Jason Castro.
Now, backing up Jason Castro, you have Carlos Corporon. Corporon last year spent most of the season in AAA. He did get some work in the MLB late in the season. In 27 games, he hit .269 with 4 home runs and 13 RBIs. So overall, you might not have a legitimate great starting catcher, but you have two guys that are capable of stepping in, have some major league experience, and can step in and give you a respectable amount of home runs. They can drive the ball a little bit. It's kind of like on this team, you're not going to get anyone great, but you're trying to find some of the small positives, and that's what you get behind the catchers or behind the plate at the catcher's position. Now, at first base, you have Brett Wallace, a guy who's still not that old. He's 26, 27 years old. He's bounced around throughout the minor leagues, and teams have always been concerned about his size, but the potential at the plate has always been there. And last year, he was able to hit .253 with 9 home runs and 24 RBIs in 66 games. So overall, last year was the first time in his big league experience where we really saw that he does have some power after spending a majority of this season at AAA. He's a guy that a lot of people wrote off. He ultimately seemed like he was headed to be a bust and spent a lot of the year in AAA last year, came back to the MLB, and looked pretty respectable. I don't think he's going to be a superstar. I don't think he's going to be a great power hitter like people once thought. But Brett Wallace is a decent player over at first base.
This is his time to shine right now. He's been bounced around, from AAA Oklahoma City to the Major League, 66 games last year. Hit 9 home runs and 24 RBIs in those 66 games, about a .253. Now, I can see this being also another, like, the work in progress, like I said before. I think that if Brett Wallace doesn't really, shine a whole lot, does not go through a slump, that's why they brought in Chris Carter from the Oakland Athletics, in which they traded away, their top shortstop in Jed Lowry, who's going to be over with Oakland right now. But Chris Carter serving as the backup there, I like this move because if Brett Wallace does go on a slump, they have another up-and-coming prospect that has power in Chris Carter. But Brett Wallace overall will not wow you a whole lot throughout the season. He can give you, on an average, on a good season, about 13 home runs. Looking at his minor stats, I mean, the best year in the minors that he had was back in 2009, when I think he was down in, single A, and he hit 20 home runs. But you know what? He's closing in on his prime, like you said, with his age. He just has to come out and really play great baseball for this Houston Astros, folks.
And you mentioned Chris Carter. I like him as a backup, too, because he's not going to give you a great average. He'll probably give you an average about .240, .250. But what he does bring is power. Last year, combined between AAA and the MLB, he hit 28 home runs. Now, that doesn't mean a ton, but it does show that he has the power potential. And in the MLB, he was able to put together a 16 home run, 39 season, albeit he hit .239. But he's your backup first baseman, so he's someone you can go into the season feeling relatively comfortable with, and it's a guy that I like. Now, at second base, you have Jose Altuve, a guy who was an all-star for them last year. Altuve hit .290 with the team last year, 7 home runs, 37 RBIs, stole 33 bases. This is a guy that would start on pretty much every team in the MLB. There's obviously a few exceptions, the Boston Red Sox, and some other teams that have very good second basemen. But overall, I think that Jose Altuve has put himself in a position to have a very good MLB career, and he's still under 25 years old.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of Jose Altuve. And when you look at this guy is a micro frame. This guy is small, but you know what? He provides the goods, and he gets the average up .290, 7 home runs, 37 RBIs out of Jose Altuve. That is good. That is solid. He's the face of the franchise. I hope that he has one of the not a bounce back season, a season that he had last year. This is a guy who has a great future ahead of him in Major League Baseball.
Now, backing him up at second and also the backup at shortstop, or a guy that has the ability to play shortstop, he's not going to be the main backup, is Jake Elmore. Last year, Elmore was with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and in 30 games for the D-backs, he hit 191, 0 home runs, 7 RBIs. So there's really not a ton to go off of. In the minor leagues, he had a good ability on the base paths to steal bases. So Jake Elmore's probably going to be more the guy you look at as a potential pinch runner. Now at shortstop, you have Tyler Green, one of the 90 people in MLB history who's been named Tyler Green. Last year, Green spent time with both the St. Louis Cardinals and the Houston Astros. With the Cardinals, he hit .218 with 4 home runs, and then coming over to Houston, he hit .246 with 7 home runs, 11 RBIs. He certainly has some pop, and he also stole 12 bases in 16 attempts last year, so he has a decent ability on the base path. Again, like pretty much everyone on this team except Jose Altuve, he's not going to blow you away. He has some ability, but he also has some deficiencies, which is why he's starting on the Houston Astros this season.
Tyler Green, I've seen this guy play with the Cardinals multiple times, and I liked what I saw out of him with the Cardinals. Coming over to the Houston Astros, it's going to give him more playing time, and which is what I like right here. I think Tyler Green, a great up-and-coming Major League Baseball shortstop. Is he going to wow you? No. Is he going to display some great plays at time to time? Absolutely. So that's what you're going to be getting out of Tyler Green from the Houston Astros. I think he is suitable to get you about 10 home runs a season, but I think that this upcoming year, you're going to see a lot of great defensive baseball coming out of Tyler Green.
Backing him up, you're looking at Marwin Gonzalez, who last year with the Astros in 80 games hit .234, 2 home runs, 12 RBIs, stole 3 bags. So, again, not a guy that's going to blow you away, but he's the backup right now. Matt Dominguez is another one of the brighter players the Houston Astros currently have. Matt Dominguez will be your starter over at third base. Last year in 31 games, Dominguez hit .284 with 5 home runs, 16 RBIs. Dominguez is one of the guys on this team that has some pop, and I'm excited to see what he's able to do. 24 years old, he's an exciting young player on this team.
This guy has a lot of potential to become a 20 home run hitter, because when you saw him down in the minor leagues with the Florida Marlins, at the time the Florida Marlins, he came over to from the Miami Marlins over to the Houston Astros during the season last year. And when you looked at Matt Dominguez, you didn't expect him to, wow you when he came into the organization. He was sent down with AAA last year. Him getting the start over at third base is going to be something you guys really want to pay attention to, because this is a guy who could possibly be that power hitter to help support, get some runs on the board and everything, along with Brett Wallace, along with Carlos Pena. I think Matt Dominguez, like I said, has the ability to reach 20 home runs.
I agree with that. Now, the one thing that if Dominguez, who they acquired in the Carlos Lee trade last year, if he doesn't work out, they do have the option of putting Chris Carter at first base and moving Brett Wallace over to third. Brett Wallace is probably more suited with his size to be a first baseman, but he came up in the minors as a third baseman, has played some third base in the MLB, so that is another option they have. Starting in right field, you have Fernando Martinez. Martinez last year in 41 games hit .237, 6 home runs, 14 RBIs. Nothing really special out of him. He came up with the New York Mets. In the minor leagues, he had the ability to give you some more RBIs, but other than that, there's nothing that's going to be too special about Fernando Martinez.
Fernando Martinez last year, he spent time in the major leagues and as well in the minor leagues, spent 90 games down in the minor leagues, and really wowed us. Batted .314 with 13 home runs, 62 RBIs. I like this guy. This is a guy who's also going to be an up-and-coming outfielder for this team. This team is filled with great, talented prospects, and Fernando Martinez is just one of those guys. I think going into this season, you guys really want to look out for him, as he's going to be splitting time with backup, one of my personal favorites, Brandon Barnes and Jimmy Paredes. And, those two guys are also coming up from AAA Oklahoma City, which has done a phenomenal job building up these prospects for the Houston Astros.
Yeah, you mentioned Paredes, who last year hit .318 with 13 home runs, 59 RBIs. That was at the AAA level. The year before, he had pretty good success at the AA level. Coming up to the majors last year in 24 games, he struggled, hitting .189, 0 home runs, 3 RBIs. Here's a guy, though, that I think this season off the bench you can get 6 or 7 home runs out of, probably an average around 260, 270, so he will likely be their 4th outfielder, and Paredes gives you a decent option off of the bench. Now, in center field, you have Justin Maxwell. Last year in 124 games, Maxwell had 229, 3 home runs, 18 RBIs. In the minor leagues, he had some more pop. I remember a couple years ago with Scranton Wilkes-Barre in AAA, he was able to hit 16 home runs. That was when I believe he was in the Yankees minor league system. He's going to the Nationals, so he's kind of bounced around in the minor leagues as well. But Justin Maxwell has some decent potential, I would say.
Decent potential, absolutely. I'm a huge fan of Justin Maxwell. Tim, you know it. You know I've been messing around with you, being like, oh, this is a guy who's going to be the breakout star. I think Justin Maxwell is the guy you guys want to look out for the Houston Astros this year. This guy plays great defense in baseball, can make the big plays, trying to rob players of home runs. This is the guy right here. Look at last year's stats. Batted .229. His average went down late into the season, but you know what? The 18 home runs, 53 RBIs. He's been bounced around from team to team with the Nationals, with the Yankees. I almost got an interview with this guy, hoping that I could have gotten an interview with him because he's one of my favorite players to watch. I think Justin Maxwell has found a solid home here in Houston. I think Houston is gonna build up with this guy. I think this is a guy which the team likes and can really build around him. So this is something you guys want to look out for the future for the Houston Astros, Justin Maxwell.
Backing him up in center field then is going to be Brandon Barnes, who spent time at AA, AAA, and the Major League level last year. In 43 games at the Major League level, did he produce very well? No, he did not. He hit 204, 1 home run, 7 RBIs. But in the AAA and AA level, he produced very well. AA Corpus Christi, he hit .317 with 7 home runs, stole 7 bags, and then at AAA, he produced even better. AAA OKC, he hit .323 with 5 home runs, 38 RBIs, stole 14 bases. So this is a guy who displays a very good glove in center field. We saw that at the Major League level, and I think what the Astros are hoping is that his bat somewhat comes around this year as well.
I like Brandon Barnes a whole lot because if you remember last year, he kind of reminds me of Justin Maxwell. He's another Justin Maxwell, but as a backup. Brandon Barnes has that speed, great on the base path, and he could be a solid bench piece, or he could possibly be starting down in the minor leagues and probably get called up via an injury, or possibly when the rosters get a little bit extended. But Brandon Barnes is a great up-and-coming prospect for the Houston Astros squad.
In left field, you have J.D. Martinez slated to start. Last year in 113 games, Martinez hit .241, gave you 11 home runs, 55 RBIs. So he has the ability to hit the long ball a little bit, give you some RBIs. You hope that the average can come up to closer to around 260 this year. But J.D. Martinez played pretty well last year for the Houston Astros.
This is another power hitter that the Houston Astros have in their lineup. I think J.D. Martinez does have the ability to reach 20 home runs, but you know what? He's got to build up on more strength to his bat. I think J.D. Martinez also has the capabilities of batting .260. He's just one of those valuable bats that the Houston Astros has got to have this year and have him be, 100% all year.
Looking over to their starting rotation now, this is where they do have some more potential. You look at Lucas Harrell, who is slated to be their ace. Lucas Harrell last year was 11-11, a .376 ERA, close to 109 or close to 200 innings, I should say. And with Lucas Harrell, I don't think he's an ace. He's pitching on the Astros. He's their ace because the Astros need someone to fill that role. And here's a guy that on most teams is a number 3 or 4 starter. What he does provide is a guy who is going to give you a respectable ERA. He's going to keep his ERA under 4. He's going to give you a decent record. So Lucas Harrell, again, he'd be a number 3 or 4 starter on most teams, but that doesn't take away from the fact that even though he's the ace on this team, he's still a pretty good pitcher.
He's a great pitcher, actually. I like the way that the Houston Astros are going the way in their pitching rotation with Doug Brocail as their pitching coach. Lucas Harrell does have a lot of hype on him in Houston to be their top pitcher, but you know what? When you look at their top pitcher, Lucas Harrell, you gotta look at the consistency that he has to have this upcoming year. He has to control his pitches because you know what? This ERA does go up at times for Lucas Harrell. Just gotta control the pitches. So I think that's what you're going to be getting out of him this upcoming year. I think he can get possibly a 12 to 13 win season with about 9 or 10 losses for this year.
At the number 2 spot is the Houston Astros' highest paid player entering the season. That would be Bud Norris. Bud Norris last year went 7-13, a 4.65 ERA, nearly 170 innings. Here's a guy that I view as a trade candidate because he is one of the higher paid players on the team, and he's established himself as a guy that in good years will give you an ERA around 4. So some teams that need a more solid number 4 or 5 starter might look to add him, whether it's at the trade deadline or in the waiver trade deadline. They might look to add Bud Norris. He's a decent piece, under 30 years old. Again, he wouldn't be a number 2 starter in an ideal situation, but the Houston Astros aren't in an ideal situation right now, and Bud Norris will be the number 2 guy, Justin.
I think Bud Norris, I think he will not. I think when it comes to the MLB trade deadline, he will be traded. But there was a lot of rumors that Bud Norris was going to get traded during this offseason, but due to his injury during the offseason, that's keeping a lot of teams away from Bud Norris for right now. But Bud Norris will be a solid maybe number 3 at best on any other team. But, Bud Norris, he's 7-13 last season with a 4.65 ERA. You know what? I like that he gives you the innings, but that's the best you're going to be getting out of Bud Norris.
At the number 3 spot, Jordan Lyles will fill that role. Jordan Lyles is a guy they are really counting on to improve this year. The last 2 years, he's had ERA over 5. And the Astros website says it, and a lot of people, and from watching it, I've noticed it, he just does not look like he belongs in the major leagues. He's had an ERA over 5 2 years in a row. Last year, he gave them a decent amount of innings at 140. But the bottom line is he's got to bring the ERA at least down into the 4s this season to help this Houston Astros team pick up some more wins.
I agree with you there, Tim. I think I'm a huge fan of Jordan Lyles. Don't get me wrong here. I've been telling a lot of people I'm a huge fan of Jordan Lyles. I always thought that this guy had rookie of the year potential, but that's obviously not going to happen. But Jordan Lyles does need to go down to the AAA level and build on his pitching mechanics because they have not been good. The 5.09 ERA. I think when he was in the minor leagues this past season in 2012, had a phenomenal outing with AAA Oklahoma City, went 5-0 with a 3.54 ERA in just 40 innings of work, got 33 strikeouts. That's really impressive. But when he came up to the major league level, did not wow us at all. 5-12 with a 5.09 ERA. I think it's going to be best, but I think that for the best opportunity right now, if you want to waste of talent here, I think Jordan Lyles should start the season down in AAA and give someone else that role in the pitching rotation.
The number 4 starter is a guy that the Houston Astros are hoping has a bounce-back year and pitches a lot closer to how he did in 2010. That is Philip Humber. While he threw that perfect game last year, he ended up with a 6.44 ERA, just really struggled. In the past, he's been a top prospect with the Mets. Didn't really work out there, didn't really work out in Minnesota or Kansas City, but he figured things out in 2011 with the White Sox, going 9-9 with a 3.75 ERA. If the Astros were able to get something like that this year, they would be ecstatic to get that out of him.
You're going to be pretty shocked with what I said. I think this is going to be a solid pickup for the Houston Astros when you go down the stretch. Philip Humber, still young, still has what it takes to be a number 4 starter right now. I think he has what it takes to improve, and you go up in the rankings in the pitching rotation somewhere down the line. I think Philip Humber will be right at home with the Houston Astros here. Being a Texas native, he's going to be a fan favorite for the Houston Astros this year.
The number 5 starter is the guy that the Houston Astros have very high hopes for, the main piece that they picked up in the Hunter Pence trade along with Jonathan Singleton, who is a first baseman, the highest-ranked first baseman in the MLB in the minor leagues, currently suspended for a positive marijuana test. But Jared Cozart is a guy that the Houston Astros view as an eventual ace. He has a very good shot to make the MLB roster this year. He hasn't done last year. Between AA and AAA, he had a combined record of 6-7 with a 3.30 ERA and 114 innings. Cozart is a guy they should bring along slowly. They shouldn't ask him, even if he has early success, they should not ask him to come in early and try and pitch too many innings. They should work him up, towards where in a couple years, if they are a better team than they are right now, they have an ace and they have a guy who is not going to have any injury problems. A couple other names to look at. They have Eric Bedard. They signed him to a minor league deal. He could potentially be a fit if, as we always say with Eric Bedard, if he's able to stay healthy, he could be a guy that we see up with the Astros this season as well.
Jared Kozar, you said it right there, Tim. You don't want to rush him, kind of like how they kind of rushed Jordan Lyles to the major league level. I think Jared Kozar has what it takes to become an ace way down the line in the future, because he's still young. He hasn't even made it up to the AA or AAA level yet, and with AAA, it's the guys who are just down there. Get some major league talent. In AAA, you face off against guys who have major league talent. I think Jared Kozar, rushing him to the majors, being at the number 5 ace, it's not a good idea right now. Give it to Eric Bedard, or possibly even give it to Dallas Kuechly, John Eli, or Alex White, who's also on this team as potential number 5 starters. But I think it should be a smart move for the Houston Astros to look at Jared Kozar and place him down in the minors at AAA and get him, pretty comfortable with what teams have signed minor league-wise to, MLB talented players.
Yeah, I think it's best to start him at AAA. It delays the arbitration process, everything. I think that is the best possible situation. Now, their two best guys in the bullpen are Wesley Wright, who's going to be their setup man, and Jose Veras, who is their closer. Let's begin with Wesley Wright, who last year went 2-2 with a 3.27 ERA and 52 total innings. This is a guy who's had pretty good success for them the last couple of years. I like Wesley Wright as their setup man, and a guy that we could potentially see as a trade candidate if he has a good season.
I don't think Wesley Wright's going to be a trade candidate. I think this is a guy who the Houston Nationals got to hold on to, because when you look at it, Wesley Wright is he has experience with the team, which is a positive thing. And Wesley Wright does give you a great amount of innings when he's called upon. So that's something that the Houston Nationals have got to keep. Now, Wesley Wright down the stretch could be a trade candidate possibility if he goes through a phase where he wants to go out and win a championship, and hopefully to tag along maybe with an Angel, with the Dodgers, even with the Yankees possibility. I think that could be a possibility there. But Wesley Wright right now feels right at home with the Houston Astros, and it would be a big loss for this team in the bullpen.
Now, as the closer, you're looking at Jose Veras, who last year spent the season with the Milwaukee Brewers, did not have a ton of experience as a closer, but as a reliever, he has put together a fairly good career with the Yankees, the Pirates, the Marlins, and the Milwaukee Brewers last year. We'll see what he ultimately does as the closer. Again, there's not a ton to go off of. I know 2 years ago when he got an opportunity with Pittsburgh, he blew 7 opportunities in 8 tries. But the closing position is a strange thing. A lot of times, guys will get a small opportunity and it just won't work out. But when they know that you are the closer on the team, and Jose Veras is the closer because they don't have a ton of options right now with the Astros, I think that's kind of a calming effect, and we may very well see Jose Veras settle in a bit more as the closer this year.
No doubt. I think it could have gone both ways. Use Jose Veras as a setup man and give Wesley Wright, the guy who has been in a closer situation multiple times with the Houston Nationals. I've been watching Wesley Wright when I watch the Houston Nationals because he's such a great pitcher. But, I like the way that they're going to be giving with Jose Veras. He has, the Major League experience. He has been in the Major Leagues longer than Wesley Wright. I like the way that the Houston Nationals are treating this situation at the closer's role and giving it to Jose Veras.
All right, so Justin, overall, having previewed this entire team, I'm looking at the Astros. They went 55-107 in a mediocre NL Central last year. And now moving them out to the AL West, I look at all the teams in that division. You not only look at what the Angels have been able to do, the Rangers still aren't going to be a pushover team despite having a rough offseason. The A's made the playoffs last year, and the Mariners are only getting better. So this is a team that I see right back in that area this year, about 53, 54 wins in their first year in the AL West.
I agree. They don't have the talent as the Dodgers or the Angels, but you know what? They got the young, talented players, which is not really going to be contending with those teams. I have them in last place, but when you look beyond this season, this upcoming year, and look into the future, this team has what it takes with their young prospects. But we're talking way down the line here, but. You know what? I think the last place is just the best you're going to get out of the Houston Astros, man.
All right, Justin. What team will we be previewing next?
Tomorrow we'll be previewing, I'm thinking, the Miami Marlins for you guys.
Alright, so another team that is not headed for a great 2013 season, but we will be here to break down every MLB team, including your favorite team. So continue to tune in for this special. I'm Tim Kelly along with Justin Godsey. This is The Real Sports Talk, and we'll see you guys later.